my god, I can't believe I just said that sentence. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Myth, Legends, Fairytales, and Makeup, this series where I tell you the original stories that led to some very popular films while I do my makeup. If you're new here, welcome! My name is Chantel, but you can call me Chanty, and today I'm going to be telling you the story of Thumbelina, as written by Hans Christian Andersen. Now, does anyone remember the 1994 version of Thumbelina? I remember even thinking as a kid that some of the storyline was just like really creepy. And the original story is no exception. Now, before we get started, I do just want to give a little shout out to Robert Welsh and Bailey Sarian, whose Get Ready With Me series inspired me to create this one. Now, let's get into the weirdness. There was once a woman who really wanted a baby, but not just any baby. She wanted a small child, like a really small child. She goes to a witch and asks her for a baby. Listen, they probably didn't have sperm banks at this time, and even then it's no guarantee, so yeah, go see a witch. Why not? So the witch gives her a grain of barley and tells her to plant it. The woman plants the barley in a flower pot and watches it grow into a large flower. Now, this flower was beautiful, but no matter how large it got, the petals never opened. Eventually, one morning, the woman is looking at her flower and she's just like, "Oh my god, I love this flower. I'm so happy I have it. I'm just gonna kiss it." So she kisses the flower, and the moment that she does this loud pop comes from the flower, and the petals finally open, revealing this tiny little cushion with this tiny little girl, no bigger than the tip of your thumb. Because of the size of this tiny little child, the woman decided to call her Thumbelina and crafted a bed for her in the shell of a walnut. Now, the little girl could also sing, and many commented that she had the best voice that they'd ever heard. One night, while she slept in bed, a toad hopped through the open window of Thumbelina's home. The toad thought that the little girl would be the perfect wife for her son. So she took the shell that Thumbelina was sleeping in and hopped out the window to return to her mud hole. She put her on a water lily in the middle of a river so that it would serve as a little island for the girl and she wouldn't be able to escape. When Thumbelina woke up and saw where she was like justifiably freaked. But as soon as this toad and his mom see that Thumbelina's awake, they like swim over to her and they're like, "Hey, like just so you know, you're marrying this toad." And then they just like took off. They just left her there all by herself. So she starts crying some more. Some fish that are swimming nearby hear her crying and they raise their heads out of the river to see what's going on. Don't ask me how, but somehow they understand the bind that she's in and they're like, "Don't worry, girl, we're gonna get you out." They start to gnaw on the stem of the lily pad that Thumbelina is on, and eventually they're able to chew through and she breaks free and starts drifting down the river. Once the fish break through the stem, Thumbelina starts floating downstream. Now she has no way of like kind of guiding her route, so eventually a butterfly that's kind of flying beside her offers to help her out. So she takes her sash, ties it to the butterfly, and then ties the other end to her lily pad, and the butterfly starts helping her float downstream. Now, having the butterfly guide her was extremely helpful, but the butterfly couldn't really do much when it came to protecting her. Because eventually a Maybug that was just kind of like buzzing through the air saw these two and is like, "Oh, I like her. I think I'm gonna steal her away," because that seems to be a theme already. So this Maybug steals Thumbelina from her lily pad and just kind of leaves this butterfly tied to this lily pad. Thumbelina feels really bad, but the Maybug, he don't give a fuck. Eventually, the Maybug takes her to this tree that he's living in, and word gets around that this Maybug has a tiny human that he's going to try and marry. So all the other Maybugs come along and they're like checking out Thumbelina, and some of the ladybugs are like, "Oh my god, this girl is so ugly. Like, she only has 2 legs. She doesn't have wings. Like, what are you doing? They made fun of her so much that eventually the Maybug who had stolen her thought she was ugly too and was kind of like, yeah, you can go. So Thumbelina leaves and starts wandering the woods trying to figure out what she's gonna do. But honestly, she has no clue. She survives for a long time on her own, but eventually spring turns into summer and summer turns into fall, and Thumbelina's starting to get cold. She knows she can't live in the forest during winter, so she starts to wander in hopes that she can find a suitable winter home. Eventually, she makes her way to a field where she meets a field mouse who offers her a place to stay for the winter as long as she helps clean and she tells him stories. As Thumbelina got to know the mouse would tell her stories about her neighbor, the mole, who was very rich, had a very large home, and the nicest black velvet coat you have ever seen. If a black velvet coat isn't on your list of things that your future partner must have, then I don't know what you're doing. Thumbelina's not really interested. She knows that moles live underground and she's like, not about that life. She likes nature. She likes being out and about, you know? She doesn't want to live with a mole, but eventually the mouse introduces the two of them and the mole is like instantly attracted. So he builds a tunnel from his house connected to the mouse's house so that the mouse and Thumbelina can come and visit him anytime. Now, in this tunnel, there was a dead bird, and the mole just kind of told them to ignore the dead bird, and anytime that they passed the bird in the tunnel, the mole would just kind of make fun of it and like kick it, and Thumbelina just felt bad. She really liked birds, she really likes nature, so she felt bad for this dead bird. One night, she feels so bad, she sneaks out with a blanket to wrap this dead bird in to kind of like pay respects towards it. So she sneaks off to give this dead bird her blanket, and when she gets there and she begins tucking the bird in, she notices that she can hear a heartbeat. She realizes, hey, this bird is still alive. I'll just keep warming it up and it'll be okay. The bird begins to thaw, and she continues to nurse it until winter turns into spring, and the bird is ready to fly. The bird invites her to leave with it, but Thumbelina feels bad and says, no, like, this mouse has been so nice to me. I would feel horrible if I just up and left on it. And the bird's like, okay, suit yourself, bye. Now, this part I don't really understand because the mole basically proposes and no one really gives Thumbelina the chance to say no. They're all just like, oh, this is great. You're marrying like the best person in the field. Good for you. Why would you choose anything other than to marry this mole? And they just kind of start planning her wedding day. Now, as the wedding approaches, Thumbelina realizes, I'm probably never gonna see the light of day again, so she's like going around all her favorite flowers, saying goodbye, explaining that, you know, like she's gonna be living with her new husband that she actually secretly hates, and because he doesn't like the sun, we live underground now. And obviously, as they get closer, Thumbelina is more and more like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And the mouse, like, threatens to bite her if she doesn't marry the mole. It's like, if you find this mole so damn attractive, why don't you just marry him yourself, huh, Mousy? Marry him yourself! So their wedding day comes, and Thumbelina's talking to the flowers, talking about how much she misses that bird that she saved and how she wished she'd gone off with it. When lo and behold, the bird just comes out of nowhere and is like, hey, like, I'm here. You should come south with me. And this time she does the smart thing and she says yes. Thumbelina's like, yes, get me the fuck out of here. Let's go. They fly for a really long time and Thumbelina sees all these sights that she's never seen before. Eventually, they make their way to the bird's south home. The bird tells her to go pick a flower to be her bed for her new home. And when Thumbelina goes down to pick a flower, the one that she picks has a tiny little dude in it. On this guy's head was like the tiniest little gold crown, and he had big, huge wings on his shoulders. He was the spirit of the flower. In every flower, apparently, in this world, there lives a tiny human with wings, and they all just, like, live in the flowers there. And this guy was the king. So Thumbelina's, like, digging this tiny man, and he's vibing, so he gives her his crown, and he says, if you marry me, I'll make you queen of all the flower people. And Thumbelina's like, I mean, yeah, this is way better than marrying a toad, a bug, or a mole, so put a ring on it, daddy. Oh my god, I can't believe I just said that sentence. So she's like, yeah, I'll marry you. And he's like, okay, cool, but like, Thumbelina's kind of an ugly name for such a beautiful girl, so your name's gonna be Maya. That's like your queen flower name. They get married and they live happily ever after. After reading this story, I had pretty much the same thoughts I had when I was a kid and watched the 1994 animated film. Why is it that this tiny girl is just expected to marry whoever wants to marry her? The toad doesn't give her a choice, just tells her. The bug probably would have done the same thing if he hadn't have succumbed to peer pressure and abandoned her. And the mouse was just like forcing Thumbelina to marry the mole. If it hadn't have been for the swallow, Thumbelina probably would be in the ground, just married to this mole making mole people. Tiny mole people. I feel like Thumbelina just kind of let things happen to her, and I'm not trying to victim blame here. That's just literally what happened. She was just like, oh, okay. And until she actually made the decision to do something for herself and fly away with the swallow, she wasn't going to be happy. My takeaway from the story is that if you do what everyone else says or thinks you should do, then you're not really going to be happy, and you're going to be miserable until you decide to do what you want to do, which I think is a moral we all needed to hear. I hope you guys liked today's story. If you like this video, if you like my vibe, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Take it easy.